Alright guys, it's Mike 5 from Lights and Lines, and this week on the Inner Sleeve podcast we're answering the big question. Does anyone really know anything about the music industry? And I think it's a fascinating debate. I think I know something, you probably know something, other people know things, but what do we really know? What does it all matter? Who knows what's going on? I've confused myself. Anyway, one thing I learned after recording this, which I wanted to share with you, is that 90% of all bands that sign up to a major record label never get their music released. Now that to me says that even the people we think are the music industry don't really know what they're talking about 90% of the time. So it's an interesting conversation, lots to dig into. We really enjoyed having it and we hope you enjoy listening to it. If you do, please hit subscribe, tell your friends, maybe they'll like it too. And let us know if you know anything about the music industry. Share it with your friends, share it with us. Cheers guys.
So today on Inner Sleeve, we're talking about, does anyone really know anything about the music industry anymore? And it's appropriate that I'm starting this one actually because I'm not entirely sure what that means. So elaborate for us, Gozer.
Elaborate. Well, this is one of those topics that I was just thinking about because there is so much conflicting information now. The whole advice for musicians industry, because that's what it is now, is an industry, is constantly at you if you're in this independent music space, telling you what you should do, telling you how you should write songs, telling you how you should promote songs, telling you what not to do, telling you the platforms you should be using, the money you should be spending, the metrics you should be observing. And it's just like a series of endless hoops. And if you stay in the stream long enough, then you start to see people who immediately contradict the person before them, and it just goes round and round and round. And it seems to me sometimes like there is like this stink of the music industry when it was at its height is lingering, right? And now we're sort of living on the fumes of when the industry was at its height, and that's the sort of like dream that people are being sold. But in real terms, the sort of amount of money that you can make from, or most of us can make from being in inverted commas the music industry, the slice of the pie that you could get has just gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And yet there's so many people telling you that you could be earning bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger pieces of this pie if you just did this and you just did that. And after a while of being bombarded with all of this cacophony of information, all of which seems at odds with each other, you just start to go, I don't think anybody knows anything anymore. I think the pace of change is so rapid, and the way that consumer habits have moved on and sort of fan behavior has moved on, it's just going so quickly that nobody really knows anything, because what was true 3 months ago isn't necessarily true now, right? And so this is, but yet we have a whole industry of people who purport to tell you how you can become more successful, right? If you just do this and you just do that and you just do the other thing. So I feel like we are all in some sort of permanent state of confusion at the moment, and there isn't the clarity that there used to be, just because the world has changed so much. But that's just my opinion. What do you think?
Well, I'll chip in here. So for me, it's about, there are some core things that people do know. to be fair. So maybe we'll start with the positives, right? So, like it's depending on how you want to release music, it's important to figure out how that works, how you want to do it. It's the same with making music, producing music. Like, there are things that are helpful and things that you kind of need to know. I think what's really interesting and kind of terrifying is, like you say, this industry and people telling you how to sell music when the reality is that no one actually has any fucking idea. So for me, the red flags are things like, does this person who's speaking to me have a training course they're trying to sell me? And if the answer is yes, I immediately think they're talking absolute bollocks, right? There's absolutely no way they're making a career as a musician. They're making a career selling training. That's fine, but I'm not a fucking mug, right? I'm not buying into that shit. And they always are, right? There's always a fucking thing.
But probably that living they're making selling training courses is much better than the living that
100%. 100%. That's my point. 100%, right? They are selling those things, right? And it's always, you look at the prices and it's always got a 7 in it. We're going to do this for 579 because that sounds better than 599, because you've all cottoned on that 599 is actually really 600 minus 1. 579 though, fucking bargain. These people are monsters. But anyway, so that's one element, right? If they sell a training course, they're a fucking idiot. But also, they always claim to have a bit of provenance, a bit of fame. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, and I don't want to dig out specific people necessarily, but there's a guy who used to run a music school, and I think he's like, he was the bass player in a semi-famous band. But normally these people are, they're the brother of the person that was a bass player in a band that you once heard of in the 90s. It's like kind of like bullshit connection to these things where they suddenly believe. But some of the advice that you see, like, I see these things, they go, what you want to do is you want to release singles every 6 weeks. You just want to release singles. You want to do them every 6 weeks. And then you want to create 48 million pieces of content to put in different places about your single. And you want to do an acoustic version. And you want to partner up with your mum and she does a duet with you. And you want to do a version where you're standing on your head in a video. And you want to do one when you're underwater and you're wearing nothing but a leopard print leotard. And it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, no one gives a fuck about any of that. But all it is people struggle so much to understand that the world is a big place and not everyone will hear your song, and the chances of you becoming famous are very, very, very slim, no matter how fucking talented you are. We talked in previous episodes, and we'll continue, I'm sure, to talk about the fact that the most famous people on the planet are not necessarily very well liked for what they do. And they're not necessarily very good at what they do either, compared to lots of people that we know who are absolutely
Madonna.
Like Madonna. She's no fucking Grim 17. But anyway,
she often says that to herself in the mirror. She goes, "You know what?
She goes,
you're pretty good, but you're no Grim 17."
Yeah, why are his tits pointier than mine? Anyway, you can edit that bit out as well. He's a strong man. He's a strong lad. No, but you have to kind of qualify these things. What is your actual experience in the music industry? Who have you actually worked with? What success? And I'm just going to take this rant of mine slightly out of this, right? My son plays football. You would not believe the amount of people. He's quite good, so he gets kind of scouted. You would not believe the amount of people that go, "Oh, your son should play for this club, they should do this, they should do this," right? None of the people who have ever been through any of the programs that I've looked into have ever become well-known footballers. So what is the fucking point? What does he actually learn? Like, what it is it costs $1,000 rather than 200 quid a year to put them through that academy rather than that one. It's absolutely insane. It's the same thing in music. So, what is your network? What are your connections? Now, I have to kind of just flip this a little bit as the owner of an independent record label doing a podcast from the label. There are people that know some stuff about the music industry, okay? The best people are the ones that don't claim to know everything. I don't claim to know everything, by the way, but that's a coincidence.
We can tell people a lot about not making any money in the music industry. So
absolutely. There's a whole episode about how to lose money as a musician.
Yeah. Like, what do you want to know? We can tell you exactly what not to do.
But the things that I know genuinely and are, I think, fairly fundamental are that there is an audience for most types of music. That doesn't mean there's an audience for every artist. Some people just aren't very good, but they will play in a style that someone somewhere will like. Your challenge is to find that and to go deep into that niche. I would rather go really, really deep into a small group of people and really get them excited about engaging with the artist, then try and go really, really broad and water down everything that we do so that it kind of appeals a little bit to everyone. So I think it's important to find your niche. I think it's important to understand a little bit about the things that people like. People do like to see music videos. People do like to read things and interact with artists. People do like to know that your song is available on different platforms. Even if you don't want to put them on streaming, maybe they want to listen to them on streaming. There are things that are kind of fundamental and you just have to kind of work with and get with. But years before we started the label, the first record that I put out when I was I don't know, I want to say 16, 17, was a friend of mine's CD, and I had all the CDs kind of printed of this EP and published. We ran a gig, we rented a village hall, we had a couple of hundred, 15 to 18-year-olds or whatever running around this place. 7 bands who made loads of money, paid all the bands who sold all the CDs. That experience is completely different to trying to do anything like that now. But fundamentally, what we did do is found a group of people who were kind of interested in something that was new to them, going out, going to a gig, probably having a bit of freedom from their parents, getting stoned, getting drunk, whatever. But we tapped into that niche of people, and I was one of those people, so it's a lot easier to do. And we found an audience, and we were successful for a brief moment in time for a band that no one's ever heard of and didn't do anything ever since. But those principles still exist. It's just that you've got to do that in a world of fucking blue sky and whatever else is out there. So for me, it's kind of just, no, people don't know anything. None of these people that claim to know anything. They're all fucking idiots. They're probably sending you a training course. But just kind of look for who the people are that might be interested in what you do. Be authentic. And if you find those people, they will support you and they will love you and you'll get some success out of that. That's kind of my answer to that.
Okay, well, then I'm going to jump on now because I have 2 things to say.
A bit ranty, sorry. Carry on.
Oh, that wasn't ranty. You're about to get a fucking rant. The first thing is as you were saying, interestingly, about all those academies and people selling, these ways of making it in the industry or in an industry. I recently read, did you know that Dragon's Den, the number of products that were rejected and went on to be successful now massively outweighs the number of products that were accepted and went on to be successful. Right, so that's the first thing. Second thing, I'm going to use this platform to go in a very specific direction because I have a very specific person that I want to talk about, and I'll open it up with saying that con men have always existed in this industry. It is an industry. All industries are rife with con men, and I just feel like music, almost more than any other, just it has so many of them that are revered as gurus, which brings me right to the doorstep of Rick fucking Rubin. Man, I hate fucking Rick fucking Rubin. Like, just lauded for a few reasons. The first reason is he's lauded as this fucking insane, intelligent guru, hitmaker guru, and fair enough, he's been involved in lots of great records with lots of great bands, and there has been a lot of great output that he's somehow been around, but he always sells it on the point of, no, I'm not a musician, I've never picked up an instrument, and more so than that, even though he produced all these fucking records, he has never touched a mixing desk in his life, which fine, really? He's never done any. Yeah, this is what he says. And it really annoys me.
Does he
I know. This is my point. But not right. Fine, you've never touched any of those things, and fine, I don't know what you're doing in there or whatever. But he's done it for about 40 years, right? And he still says it. So how hard do you have to work to never learn anything about an instrument or about music or mixing desk when
you're surrounded by them?
Yeah, fuck right off, okay? And then the second thing is, I saw this video of this guy who produces, and we're right back to the little ginger scrote that is Ed Sheeran. just the Ed Sheeran stuff. And Rick Rubin came in to produce with them, and he was doing his exactly his fucking Rick Rubin shtick of nonsense, where he literally walked in and they played this song for him, and he said, and I quote, now this is secondhand information because it was the engineer who was recounting the story, Rick Rubin said, "This song makes me feel orange." And then he walked out of the room, and they were left having to try and figure out what the fuck that meant. So they went back and they stripped everything out of the song that they thought didn't work. And they reworked the song until he came back in and said, "Yeah, that sounds more like it now." And you're just like, someone please fucking put this man out of my misery. What the fuck's going on? And it just, he seems to encapsulate this whole area of charlatan that just is pervasive and famous for no reason, and sells himself as I don't know what. And I if you want to know, does anybody know anything anymore in the music industry? From what I can tell, there were a great many people that were successful in the music industry that didn't know fuck all back in the day. So yeah, I don't know, man.
It's really interesting. I didn't know any of that, right? And I was fully prepared to go, well, hang on, like, I've got some issues with Rick Rubin, but he did some great things like Rain in Blood, and he did that. I think he did that Johnny Cash one where he did the cover of Hurt, didn't he? Nine Inch Nails.
Oh, he done 4 Johnny Cash albums.
Yeah, and I think he did an Eminem album. He's done all sorts of stuff. But I was fully prepared to go, he does some stuff with all this noise war stuff that's kind of ridiculous, but he's producing good albums. But what you're saying there is exactly what I didn't know. That man's a fucking charlatan.
Yeah, he is a fucking tool of the highest order. Plus,
wow.
Apparently, he was very, very, because the Beastie Boys were quite young whenever he discovered them, and he pushed them for the first few records, but he pushed them and he kept pushing. He basically forced them to stay with this persona that they had, and they really wanted to break out of it. They didn't like this, sort of laddish, kind of backwards, almost misogynistic kind of shit that they were doing. They grew out of that, and he continued to apparently push them in that direction. And I have heard some rumors as well that he's secretly a big MAGA supporter, so I don't know.
Oh, well.
All right. I'm on board with a lot of this, but there's a lot of hearsay in what you're saying, isn't there? Right?
I just jumped on it when he's a charlatan. It's a good point. I've got no evidence other than the beautiful.
There's lots of stuff here that you heard on TikTok, isn't there?
Well, one of them is stuff that he says in interviews himself about, I never touched an instrument, I've never touched a mixing desk. He said that himself.
But he has. I mean, I've literally seen him sat at numerous mixing desks.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly.
Pretty sure he had his finger on the desk as well. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe he was just hovering above.
Yeah.
Now I really want to hear what a Rick Rubin produced Grim 17 record would sound like.
I want to know what Orange sounds like. That's what I want to know.
But he said it made him feel orange. He didn't even say it sounded orange. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is just indicative of what you were saying. Just Grim is so true. Like the music industry is one of the most easily exploitable industries out there, or it's full of the people who seem to be the most easily influenceable and exploitable when it comes to parting with their money in order to get to the next level of whatever perceived success is at any one time. And
it's completely unregulated, right? So nothing to stop anyone doing anything. And as much as that has benefits, it also means people can just lie to you. And that's the fact. That's the reality.
And get you to part with your money very, very easily. And it makes me angry. I feel like this is a real theme for the episodes that we've recorded lately. Gozer is angry.
But it's the same as the people that write reviews, and that there used to be a bit of an art in critiquing music, but now anyone can do it. And what they want to do is they want to charge you to then write a review that no one will ever read, and they probably slag you off as well. Yeah, and it's like, hang on a minute, what possible benefit? But people pay People go, yeah, have my money, slag me off.
I mean, this is
Tell
like
people, even though no one reads your fucking blog that you made up 5 minutes ago, use ChatGPT to write the review. I don't care. I'm going to quote it anyway and put it in my press release, in my EPK. Fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is a lot like this. It's off topic, but it reminds me of Submit Hub. Why is anybody using Submit Hub in 2025? You're literally paying people to slack you off, and they haven't even listened to more than like they listened to 10 seconds of the song, and send you feedback saying, "Oh, the pace wasn't." Right, or it didn't have a big enough chorus, and you're like, you didn't even get to the fucking chorus, you only listened to 10 seconds of the track. It's
mad. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
The thing about that whole thing as well is people do plunder money, but it's like a slot machine, right? Because it only costs like £1 or something per go. So people just do it. They don't realize, this is how you become a gambling addict. You become addicted to fucking Submit Hub feedback. If you're a fucking masochist anyway, I assume. But it is, it's kind of a narcissist, but it's this insanity. But what it is, and again, we talked about in the politics episode generally, right? Not blaming the people, right? It's not. We can't sit here and dig out other musicians for doing this. They don't know any different, and no one is guiding them, and no one is showing them, and no one is telling them, and no one is fucking supporting them. Yeah. So, and of course, like, you're an idiot. But the whole point is the people making the money want us to fight with each other and call each other idiots. But the purpose is we should be fighting against all this bullshit that exists. You can pay.
Like Rick Rubin.
No, Rick Rubin. You can pay to get onto a playlist on Spotify, despite the fact Spotify's terms specifically tell you that's not allowed. There's a whole industry in doing that. And I reported one to Spotify just to see what happened. And they went, it doesn't really seem like it's that. It feels pretty legit. Well, it's not. It's pretty explicitly not. But you're obviously getting something out of it as well, right? So
that's the thing, isn't it? And then I was watching a video. Literally, I sent it to you guys just before we started recording. And it's about a guy who is claiming to have broken an artist who hadn't released anything else at all and had 0 followers, and went from 0 to 50,000 monthly listeners in just 6 weeks, right? And he's breaking down the strategy for that. And the strategy was he spent almost £5,500 on Facebook advertising. And you're like, that sounds achievable for most of us. Yeah, absolutely. But then, so you pay your £5,500 to get 50,000 people listening. How much have you lost? Because you're not going to get £5,500 back from Spotify for that, are you?
So 50,000 people streaming a song will get you 150 quid.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great rate of return. Yeah. I'm on board. Take my money.
So to make your £5,000 back, each one of those 50,000 people streaming would have to listen to 30 songs, 30 of your songs.
Sounds doable.
Like, this is what I mean. It's absolute bullshit.
Yeah. But this is part of the problem. And to bring this back around, this is kind of why you get to the point where you feel like nobody knows anything, because none of these metrics make any sense. None of the sums add up, and all of the people who are apparently making money from music don't seem very trustworthy. Do you know what I mean? So
they also don't seem very fucking rich when you see their videos. They don't look like people that are making money from music. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not being funny, but you don't see Bon Jovi saying, "Hey, join my training course about how to sing." Like, he's fucking sitting in his luxury. We talked about buying a boat, right? He's sitting on his fucking boat.
Yeah, he would be sitting on. But I really like the idea that Bon Jovi has got a training course that he's trying to sell you, and there's maybe 10 modules, and when you get to level 5 he's like, whoa, you're halfway there.
Well, I like the idea of the advert for the course. Whoa, stop, wait there, let's talk about but also, if he recognized, if he was self-aware how bad it was that he was doing that, he could do the whole "I'm a cowboy."
But he could
Right,
get,
anyway,
Johnny
we're going.
used to work on the dock, but until he got my course, and now he's a well-renowned professional singer.
Now he's in a jazz club every night,
Yeah.
drinking whiskey,
Anyway.
playing the saxophone. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I purposely stayed out of all that just
I'm
in
sorry.
case that does.
I know it's because you've reached your quota of hate so far in this episode, haven't you? You didn't want to start ragging on John Bon Jovi because you'd already used up all your vitriol on Rick Rubin.
Well, this is the thing. Bon Jovi is he's quite a philanthropic man. I'm not a massive fan of his music, but he's
Oh, here we go. Now we found it out.
He basically he founded a load of like charitable restaurants. Like you go in and pay what you want, and they feed the homeless. And
Cool.
he works in them most days these days, apparently.
When he's not working on the docks.
When he's not working on the docks,
Or putting his training course together.
Putting on his, and yeah.
I've got nothing against Bon Jovi. They are another band in the bracket of whatever. Like, I get it, but it's not really for me. But yeah, I've got nothing against John Bon Jovi personally, and I'm glad that he does that with his money. Good for him. I'm sure he probably owns a boat as well, though.
That's good. Yeah. Maybe he owns a boat that is also a place like a soup kitchen at the same time. Maybe he just pulls into port, opens up the back of the boat, rolls out some soups.
Of all the meals to serve on a boat, though.
Well, you know what happens? It gets slippery when wet.
Oh. Thanks for listening to the Inner